This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FI Investment Group and your host of Washington Calling, where we interview leading voices from business, from politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, we are fortunate to have a distinguished guest and a dear friend for many, many years, Dr. Sanjay Roy. Dr. Roy is the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at Montgomery College and is a champion and supporter of innovations that advance community college student success in career, technical, and workforce development program. He supported, and I must say, I'm very proud of his accomplishment. He supported the development of the Frank Islam Athenaeum Symposia, which is wonderful. It bears our name. Well, bears my name, and it bears his, and he was responsible for making this happen. He's also responsible and supported the development of Hillman Entrepreneur Program and the development of the Biological Sciences Education Building. And the most thing that I'm very proud of his accomplishment in 2017, he was selected Leadership Montgomery's Outstanding Leader in acknowledgement of his exceptional leadership in making a difference in our proud county called Montgomery County. Montgomery County, and the name of the college that his senior vice president is called Montgomery Community College. And thank you, Sanjay, for coming to our show, and welcome to our show. It's wonderful to see you, Sanjay, and interviewing you. We're wonderful. Thank you.
Frank, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's really an honor to be here with you and hopefully discussing some of the topics of mutual interest. As you know, I came to United States as a student from India, born in India, not too far away from your native place in Azamgarh. My family, my ancestors are from Ghazipur, eastern part of Uttar Pradesh or UP. I went to Allahabad University, did my undergraduate and master's, and then came to Canada at Dalhousie University in Halifax and did a master's in mathematics, came to United States for a doctorate, and I have been very fortunate and blessed to be with Montgomery College and in Montgomery County for the last 18 years, and currently serving as Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs. I do want to most sincerely acknowledge your generosity in helping college establish Frank Islam Athenaeum Symposia at the Germantown campus. It happened because of your foresight, your vision, your generosity, and we are so thankful to you for making that commitment towards our students. So thank you very much.
So Sanjay, you had a remarkable success story from India to Canada to the United States of America. There has been a lot of successes, there have been failures. So, and you know, the failures also helps you never look back. Is there anything in your life that had a failures that allowed you to convert failures into opportunities?
There were, many successes, many failures. And, being a first generation immigrant,
yes.
Often there are unusual barriers.
Okay.
Very fortunate to be in this country, in the state of Maryland and Montgomery County, with so many supporters, friends, and people who accept immigrants with open arms.
That's very well said. As President Kennedy once said, immigrants infuse this nation with far horizons and new frontier, thereby keeping the hope alive and well. And he was very proud of his own ancestor who came in 1872 from from Ireland. He was an Irish Catholic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. What changes do you have seen in the teaching profession, especially during this challenging and difficult pandemic? And how do you see the disruptive role of technology on the personal connection between teachers and students? And my question to you also will be, do you think the pandemic has had devastating impact on learning and students' academic achievement?
Yeah, so Frank, this is a very complex question. What we have done, and very comprehensive question, thank you for asking, and I'm sure in the next few years, several dissertations will be written to address the question, a very important one that you just asked. What I see from my vantage point, in the pandemic, we have learned a lot about our students, number one. What we learned, especially students at community college, low-income students, first-generation students, that our students are more vulnerable than what we thought, right? So we can't just send them home that you can learn online. Many of them don't have homes. Many of them have hunger problems. Many of them don't have technology. Many of them don't have internet connections, those types of things. So we learn a lot about our students. Then we also learn a lot about ourselves. You know, how we teach, what we teach, how adequately we are prepared to use technology. Technology can do amazing things, but higher education in general has not paid enough interest and resources in professional development in utilizing technologies to meet the needs of students. So we have understood a lot about ourselves, and we have also learned one thing, that we can change. Higher education is often considered rigid, that you can change. But overnight, most institutions across the country started offering education and support online within a matter of hours, right? 48 hours or 72 hours. So we can change. So those are positive the developments.
So what has been, Sanjay, the lingering and the long-term and lasting impact of the pandemic on your own community college? And you are recognized as a leader in online course, as you mentioned to us. Can you tell us and shed some bright lights on the pandemic's new challenges as well as solutions? And has the pandemic reshaped education? And also, what lessons have you learned as an educator in terms of the pandemic, and what has been the effect of this pandemic on the students, as you mentioned?
Yeah, so certainly, as I mentioned earlier, pandemic has impacted low-income, first-generation immigrants and others more negatively than others. So certainly students who didn't have a home, students who don't have technology or access, they are falling behind, especially in our school system. So learning loss is a real issue that is emerging from the pandemic experience. So how do we impact, how do we recover from the learning loss? Students who are coming through the pipeline, their learning is probably not adequate. And we were already dealing with the achievement gap issues. So pandemic, I'm concerned that is going to broaden that achievement gap further. On the brighter side, technology is emerging. Better technologies are being developed to address students' needs. Better pedagogy is being developed. The answer is not that everything is technology and you can do everything virtually. We also learned that that's not possible. Face-to-face interaction is extremely important, especially for students of first generation. They need to come in a classroom and see a professor or support person in person. So we have understood that part also. So I do think the future is brighter. Because of this experience, education will become more accessible. Mm-hmm. It will become more flexible, mm-hmm. and hopefully more affordable. And you will see global enterprises developing. Higher education was isolated from globalization. And I think this pandemic is going to break that glass ceiling as well.
Do you see a brighter horizon, Sanjay, in terms of the challenges that you face during this difficult and challenging period of with pandemic? And So my question to you, what are your thoughts? I want to change the gear and talk to you about the challenges that higher education face today and how industries, and you do a good job in terms of partnership with industry, can play a role in bridging the gap between opportunities in the workforce. And what do you think some of the problem the higher education faces, you know, besides the student debt and affordability you also mentioned a skill gap, you mentioned the rising of operating costs, shrinking federal and state budget. Those have been the factors. So tell me a little bit about what have been the challenges the higher education face.
I think
the challenge that I talked to you about.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think the most fundamental one is our digital economy.
Yeah.
So as you know, economy is digital, business is done in the digital world, and a lot of work is happening digitally, even a lot of experiments and trials and other things. So because of that, I think there is a lag between what's happening in our classroom and what's happening in business and industries. Typically, you know, I think the CEO of Intel once told us in a workshop that in the month of December, the products that they ship to their customers, January of the same year, they were not aware that those products even exist.
My goodness.
So business and industry is changing at a very fast pace. We in higher education are not used to working at that fast space. So certainly that has created a skill gap. You know, millions of jobs are available in the United States today where employers cannot find, you know, adequate workforce or talent. At the same time, we have a lot of people who are unemployed.
You're right.
So the challenge for us is how do we connect people who are unemployed with the jobs that are available? And people who are unemployed, again, if you look at the demography of those people, they are first generation people, people of color who are in those groups. They do not have resources, time of 4, 5 years, 6 years to access higher education to become employable in those sectors. So higher education has to find an alternate way of giving employable skills to these people so they can get employed in those industries where the jobs exist. Traditional system of higher education does not work for people who are unemployed at this point in our country.
Very well said. So Sanjay, I wanted you to shed some light and tell us a little bit about your partnership with the industries and how successful have you been, and have you changed your curriculum in a way that focuses on the industries that basically wants to hire the students from your college?
Absolutely. So as you know, we are in Montgomery County, Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C. So D.C., Maryland, and Virginia is a knowledge economy sector. IT area is one of the largest employer. Hundreds and thousands of jobs are advertised every year in IT area. Second, Montgomery County, as you know, Time magazine in the early 90s declared us as DNA Valley, DNA Alley. So because of human genome sequencing, we have about 300 or so life sciences companies.
Very well said.
And just because of the pandemic, as you know, we are the vaccine capital of the world.
Right.
About $8 billion of investments have come to Montgomery County companies in the last 24 months.
Wow.
So we have responsibility of creating a large scale workforce for life sciences industries, IT industries, and again, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity.
And you said it very well.
Yeah, and they are important. Of course, the life sciences industries, our companies are involved in vaccines, treatments. There are human importance of these companies. So not just from economic point of view, from humanitarian point of view, it's important for us to create workforce for these companies. Cyber, again, defending our national infrastructure, and you know the world that's today cybersecurity is extremely important. And preparing students from first generation and diverse community to get into that workforce is also very important for us. So we work very closely with all major biotechnology companies in the region in creating our curriculum, taking their advice, our students doing internships or apprenticeship in all major companies. You name it, any company in this area, we are working with them in one way or the other. They provide expertise to teach classes. They donate equipment, which is very expensive sometimes that we can't afford. And even supplies for biotechnology experiments are very expensive. And we are very fortunate that companies provide us that.
So the model that you describe in terms of cybersecurity and pharmaceutical business, which is the biotechnology, is that applicable somehow in India also?
Absolutely. It's available. It's applicable everywhere.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's applicable everywhere. And the problems that we have here, very similar problems exist in India and other developing economies. Everyone has to shift their economy from their traditional economy to digital economy. So the same model is needed. And I'm very happy to inform you that over the last 10 years, Montgomery College has led the way in expanding community college concept in India and also other places in the world.
I want to talk to and change perhaps the gears to talk about the major concern across the world in terms of higher education, and especially the barrier that the people who come from the socially and economically disadvantaged section of the society. How can this education be bridged? And talk a little bit about racial disparity that you mentioned, the financial challenges, socially economically disadvantaged people, lack of self-esteem, and how can education play a role to improve the communities and also get rid of the poverty? Well, you cannot get rid of the poverty. We can reduce the poverty and create jobs so that the poor children can have a better future.
Yeah. So thank you for that question, Frank. I really love that question. I think that our goal should be elimination of poverty from all over the world.
Right.
That should be our goal. Our community college system is very unique to United States. And I think that is one of the strongest part of US post-Second World War, not only in education, but also in social and economic upward movement and bringing equity in the society. Community colleges have played a very significant role in this country. I think that as this concept is evolving right here, we're still learning in our own country, in the United States. This is a model that has significant potential of expansion in other parts of the world. If you take places like India, where 500 or 600 million people are below the age of 30, right. One needs to have an affordable and meaningful models of higher education that provide education at large scale that connects with employment. A high quality education at low cost that connects with employment in the industries that exist in any region. Community colleges have proven to be very successful in this country for the last 70 years. So I think that poverty elimination can only happen through meaningful education. And hence this model is important.
Education is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me ask you the last questions before we close our conversation, and to talk about India's education institution. Do you believe that India's education system institution failing to match the demands generated by the rapidly and fast changing world, and talks a little bit about lack of sufficient funds for schools that exist, education facilities that are still short of the what I consider the needs of the country. A lot of Indians that are still, the people who are marginalized, and also the people who are minorities, they still lack the education system. So how does India can overcome those challenges uh, uh, in terms of the education and also to make sure they can match the demand generated by the rapidly and fast changing world?
Certainly, the large number of young people in India is a challenge. If you look at the United States, we have about slightly over 10 million students in our colleges across the country, about 14 million or so.
Oh my goodness.
Think about 500 million young people. The scale is so much in India that the only way out there is having a model like what has worked in the United States that brings education for all at a very affordable rate or at almost no cost, that gives immediate employment opportunity. A new model very similar to community colleges must evolve. There are bright aspects in India as well. While there are challenges, the new education policy, I think, is a step in the right direction.
What is the new education policy?
It's more aligned, it's similar to what happens in developing economies, stepping away a little bit from the old British system of pre-1947, a lot of memorization, a lot of theoretical, more emphasis on critical thinking.
They don't do creative thinking.
Creative thinking, writing, quantitative thinking.
And the emphasize is basically in memory and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
More innovation based. That's there. Lot of, still privatization is happening. The quality issues, some very good, some not so good.
Yeah.
But, the alternate models that are emerging in India, they are also very powerful. Things like Unacademy or BYJU.
What is BYJU? What is
JU, yeah, they are online platforms.
Okay.
And they provide a parallel education to students. They have hundreds and millions of subscribers. And some of these companies are valued at $25 billion or so. One is official sponsor of the World Cup soccer in Qatar that's happening. So I think, there are some bright side because of those necessity that you have so many young people, traditional model, there will never be enough resources to create thousands of universities and colleges. So alternate versions that are emerging out of necessity are very, very creative. But I do think that India has a demographic advantage. But that time is passing because we need to make sure that skill development happens in India at a faster pace than what we are seeing at the moment. We have an opportunity. We have a lot of young people. We need to be more impactful and more outcomes-based system so that our young people have opportunities not only in India, opportunities are all over the world.
Yeah, that is a good point.
So Indian youth could be employable anywhere in the world.
Right, that's a good way to put it.
Our skill development
Sanjay,
should be with that mindset.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about, before we close our conversation, India does not have, in addition to the online courses and things that India is doing, which is a pretty creative, there are not that many community college in India. Why is that?
So I think that's a problem all over the world. As I said earlier, United States is the only country that was creative enough to start that system. India has moved in that direction over the last 10 years. Community college concept is coming up. There are few community colleges in India at this point. More are needed. And the ones that are there, they also have a room to improve and align more with the model that works for the society. Scaling up is still issue. They're still enrolling fewer students than the need. But still on the bright side. Community college concept is evolving in India. I would say there are 500-600 smaller community colleges of some kind in India already, but the movement needs to go faster than what it is right now.
Okay, so before we close our interview, do you have anything to say before we close our conversations and also the interview? And we deeply appreciate you coming for interview, and thank you very much.
So Frank, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. It's always a pleasure to be in your company and have conversation on these topics that are so important, not for Montgomery County only or Maryland or just United States, but throughout the world. We live in a very interconnected world. So the platform that you brings some really global conversation. And not to repeat myself, but very, very thankful to you for your generosity to Montgomery College. Our students are benefiting tremendously, and we just hope and wish that this partnership continues forever.
Oh, that's very well said. And thank you very much. Thank you for watching. This is Frank Islam, wishing you a great week.